Hi, it's Carol from Bookreporter.com, bringing you a different kind of program this week. A couple of weeks ago, Chris Whitaker, who wrote We Begin at the End, one of my favorite books of 2021, reached out to me to ask if I could be part of a special program that he was doing and interview him for a Macmillan Book Club event to celebrate the paperback edition of We Begin at the End. I've talked to Chris twice before, and I welcome the opportunity to do a third conversation with him. So what's coming up is courtesy of Macmillan. We thank them for sharing it with us. And it's a program I think you won't want to miss. And Chris does give a little bit of allude to what's coming next for him as well. So everyone, enjoy.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Meg Collins, and I'm on the author events team at Macmillan, and I have just a couple housekeeping items before I let these two take it away. So first of all, I'd like to thank all of the bookstores who partnered with us on this event today. If you haven't already, please check out the link I'll be dropping in the chat to purchase a copy of We Begin at the End from one of our partners. We've got the chat box for you to talk with each other, and we also have the Ask a Question box below us where you can put any questions that you'd like answered during the second half of this event. We'll be keeping an eye on both for general disruption, and we do reserve the right to delete any inappropriate or offensive comments or questions and to ban from the event anyone who's being disruptive. Please keep this in mind and treat our panelists and your fellow viewers with respect and politeness. Today, I am so pleased to welcome Chris Whitaker, whose work includes books Tall Oaks and All the Wicked Girls, as well as We Begin at the End, which just came out in paperback on April 12th. In conversation with him today is Carol Fitzgerald, the president and founder of the Book Report Network, who is well known for her wonderful author interviews in the Book Reporter Talks To video and podcast series. Thank you both for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Meg. It's so nice to be here. Chris, here we are again. Again. It's a year later. Let's see, we talked, I guess it was 14 months ago.
I can't believe it's that long. Can you?
No. And you were supposed to be here. You were supposed to be, in the same room or something.
Well, they keep putting me off all the time. So.
It's that little COVID thing. That little COVID thing keeps happening. So let's see.
Yeah,
we've got,
I know.
A year later, a new cover. You've got the new cover behind you of the old cover.
There it is.
The same wonderful story, and which is both character and landscape driven. Audience, this is one of my favorite books of last year. This is a book that I handed to many people and said, just read this. It's absolutely terrific. And then the phone would ring and people would say, you were right. It really was. Like they weren't believing me from the start. So yeah, what did they know? What did they know? So you've got this really terrific backstory on how you came to write this book. And it's one of my favorite stories. And I would love you to share it with the audience today, because I don't think that everybody's had the opportunity to hear this.
Okay, I shall. Okay, it's a strange one.
Right.
So I'll go back to the very beginning. So I messed up at school, was kind of more focused on drinking alcohol with my friends than attending my exams. So I kind of messed up my chance to go to university. And then I left and kind of bounced around from job to job, and I was doing some bar work and sales and things like that, and then I was working as a real estate agent, like a trainee, and I was out one morning in London, and I was putting leaflets through people's doors, and it was early, like about 9:30 in the morning, and someone came up to me and asked to borrow my cell phone. And being a Londoner, I kind of knew that I was going to get mugged, because it happened to some of my friends, and it was a strange request. And but I was on my own, and he was on his own, and he wasn't that big, and I was 19 and kind of brave, and so I put up a fight. Basically, we had a bit of a fight, and then he pulled out a kitchen knife, and I remember looking at it and thinking this is a big knife, he's not going to use it. It's just something he's going to scare me with. And then he stabbed me 3 times in the side. But I didn't realize at the time, because the adrenaline was going, and so I didn't really feel it. But I was wearing a white shirt, and I looked down, and I remember it was just completely red. And then I dropped the phone. He dropped everything. Picked up my wallet, made some threats, and then ran off. And so I was standing there on this street in London completely alone without a phone. And I managed to get back to my car and drive myself to hospital. And they stitched me back together. And the consensus was that I was really lucky. And I remember feeling really unlucky. You know, I couldn't I got it on one level, you know, it didn't hit any vital organs or anything, but I just remember thinking it was really unfair, you know, and life has this horrible way of, you know, making you collide with people that are on other paths to you. And I remember my friends kind of slapping me on the back, you know, wanting to see the scars, and the feeling was that I should just be able to deal with it, you know, in a kind of man way, you know, like men slapping each other on the back. You're expected to be able to cope with something that you can't cope with. But I couldn't, you know, I couldn't understand why I couldn't read anything. I wasn't eating properly. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't read a book, watch TV. I just kept kind of playing it over and over in my head. And things got really bad after that. I just didn't feel like myself. And I didn't tell anyone, because my mum was one of those tough single mothers, you know, and we kind of struggled for money, but she never let us see it, me and my brother. She just used to smile all the time, you know, and say everything's fine. And so I think I learned that from her, and it's probably not the best way to deal with something like that, you know, just repeatedly telling everyone that you're okay when you're not. And things got so bad that I began to hoard painkillers and sleeping pills, and I was going to take them all. And the day that I was going to do it, I'd been to the library, to my public library, and I'd got a self-help book out, and it talked about a technique where you take the traumatic incident and you change you write about it, but you change the characters, the people involved, to fictional characters, and you change the location and you change the outcome. And I sat down and I wrote Duchess, the character from We Begin at the End. She's the 13-year-old kind of star of the book. And I had this strong image of this girl wearing a Stetson, carrying a gun. And, you know, outwardly, she appears quite vulnerable, but she's clearly tough. And I wrote a scene that later appeared in the book. But it wasn't a book. You know, I should point out, I didn't want to be a writer. I didn't have any interest in writing. It was just like distraction, and it kind of got me through that night. And I slept that night, you know, for like 6 hours or something, and it was the first time I'd slept properly since it happened. And so that helped, you know, that helped when nothing else did, writing. And then probably about a month after that, I was drinking and taking drugs, and drove my car off the side of the road and had quite a bad car accident, and have a scar down my cheek, which is like a reminder, you know, that I was an idiot every time I shave in the morning. And I didn't tell anyone. Again, like my mum just thought that I was drink driving, you know, being a stupid kid, and I didn't tell anyone what was really going on. So I went back to writing again, and I wrote a bit more of this girl and her life. You know, I wrote snippets, kind of bits of scenes that didn't run together. So it wasn't a book, it was just pieces of writing. Sometimes it was a sentence, sometimes a paragraph, sometimes like 5,000 words. I would sit up all night writing. And probably a year went by before I began to feel better and began to think about what next. Because I was only 20 around then, 2021, and needed to do something with my life. And I just so happened to pick up a newspaper, and there was an article about a stockbroker, and there was a picture of this guy, and he had, I remember it clearly, he had a Ferrari and a boat, and I thought I kind of stupidly thought that would be a job that would make my parents proud. And so I disregarded the fact that I'm terrible at maths and had no qualifications, and I went into the city of London and kind of got thrown out of loads of banks before someone would see me and give me a job as a trainee. And this is Carol's favorite part of the story, isn't it?
Yeah, we're getting there.
So I spent a few years working as a stockbroker, like a trainee, and I do client entertaining and stuff. And I was back to drinking again and taking drugs, because it was kind of the culture, and we worked really hard and really long hours. And I would, so to give you an example of how my life was, I spent a lot of time in it. There's a famous strip club in London called Stringfellows, And I was in there so much that I became friends with all the girls that worked there, all the dancers, and we became such good friends that they all came to my wedding, which Carol finds really funny, and my wife didn't find as funny at the time, but now does. So it was, while it was fun, you know, I had fun at the time. It probably wasn't the best fit for me, you know, with the hours and the not sleeping, and but I really wanted to be a trader, and my boss, I kept kind of asking, can I work on the trading desk, and one day he gave me a shot, but he had a rule, and it was, if I lost $20,000, I would stop trading, and we would talk about what went wrong, and that was kind of like my limit, and I came in on my first day and lost $2 million, and didn't tell anyone, you know, as there's a pattern emerging, isn't
The
there?
pattern, yeah. Don't tell anybody.
So, yeah, don't tell anyone, and what could possibly go wrong. And so my friend worked in the back office, so I said to him, let's keep it quiet, which is illegal, and I'll make it back, which I couldn't, obviously, but I kept it going for probably 6 weeks. I think 6 of the most stressful weeks of my life, and then I came in one morning, and there was a glass boardroom, and everyone was sitting in there, like the bosses, the lawyers, the company directors, and then there was an empty chair at the end of the table, and so I sat down, and they knew everything at that point, but I'd also started to make money again, and they said, if you pay back half of it yourself, then we won't go to the police. And so they gave me a contract, and I signed it because it was, you know, a no-brainer. But I remember clearly going home, riding the train home that evening, and I was in $1 million of debt, and I was 24 and engaged, and there was a big wedding because everyone thought I was really successful. You know, that was the image I liked. That was that, you know, you don't need to worry about me, I'm fine. And so I put everything on my credit card and got myself into a ton of debt. And so for the second time, I felt, you know, like things were out of control, but I couldn't tell anyone. And I started, you know, I had suicidal feelings and began to think about life insurance and stuff like that, and because I didn't want to leave my fiance without anything. So I was in a real mess, and I was right, but mentally right back where I was just after I'd been stabbed, and so that was tough. And so I turned back to writing again for the second time. You know, I went back to, I hadn't written anything for a couple of years, and I picked back up with Duchess, with this character, and kind of, and I kind of projected how I was feeling onto her. So if I was angry, she was like 10 times angrier. If I was feeling a bit lonely, she was full of despair. And I remember on my honeymoon writing, you know, when my wife was asleep, I'd be up all night kind of writing just bits of this girl's life. And it took me probably another 5 or 6 years to pay off the money that I owed. And I've still got the letter that says I'm debt free. I'll keep it forever. But yeah, exactly. But then I was nearing 30, and I read a book called The Last Child by John Harp, which I know you're a fan of, John Harp.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. And it's just beautiful, and it was so inspiring. And I read an interview with John Hart, and he talked about how he was a successful lawyer, and he turned his back on that career because he wanted to write. And so the next day I was offered a promotion, actually, and I quit there and then because I wanted to be a writer. You know, I thought what's the one constant over the last decade of my life, and it was writing. It was the one thing that I turned to, the one thing that kind of made me happy. And then I went home to my pregnant wife and said, I've quit my job and we've got no money. And she was brilliant. She kind of knew that there was something that, you know, I wasn't telling her, and I wasn't happy. And overnight we kind of sat up and made a plan and sold our apartment and our car and just changed everything. And then for years after that, we kind of struggled for money. And I worked 3 jobs whilst writing. And now, only in the last year, because when the last time I spoke to you, I was working at the library.
Right,
still.
right.
And I don't work there anymore because I couldn't keep it going. But now I'm pretty much a full-time writer, which is, yeah,
Really nice.
yeah. So
wait a second. That means you're not handing the people your book and saying you want me to take this out? Because when we left off last year, that's what you were doing. People come
I
into the
still do
library.
that.
I'd like a book about history. Here's this book. Here's a book. Yeah. Cooking here, So nice to know. Okay, that's good. That's really good.
No, I can still do that because I'm still friends with all the people in the library. So I'll just go in there and do it. And
just go in there and just go. Yeah. Someone just wrote down in the chat that's an amazing story. And that's the reason that I started with it, because it's such a great story about this character got you through so much, and she means so much to you as a result. So starting with her, there's so many damage with, people with regrets that tie them together. So let's move away from Duchess for a second and talk about Walker, because he really sets everything in this book into play with something he does when they're 15. And we're not going to do spoilers. A couple of people have asked if we're going to do spoilers. No, we're just going to talk characters.
Yeah. Okay. So Walk is, I love Walk. He's like, so Duchess we'll talk about, but Walk is kind of like Duchess's moral compass. He knows right from wrong. We first meet him at the very beginning of the book, and he's 15. And it isn't a spoiler to say that someone dies at the very beginning. A child dies, because it happens in the first page. And then we pick up with Walk 30 years later, and we find out that he is now the chief of police, but he's kind of stuck in that time. 30 years ago. We catch up with him and he still lets everyone call him Walk, which was his childhood nickname, even though he's the chief of police. And his best friend went to prison because of what happened, and he's never been the same since. So he wants to kind of preserve this beautiful town that they live in. He wants to keep it exactly as it was 30 years ago. So when people try and build or put in applications to build new housing, he objects to everything, and he wants, because that was when he was last happy, back when he was 15, and he's waiting for his friend to come out of prison so they can kind of pick up where they left off. And it's a bit tragic, really, isn't it? In Walk, it's a bit because he's still like a kid. He's got a gun and a badge, but he is still, and he has this friendship kind of with Duchess. It's this strange relationship, because he used to be best friends with her mother, and now he's kind of a surrogate father figure that she doesn't want. she won't acknowledge, and he's kind of tested throughout the book. His faith and his ability to do the right thing are called into question.
And he's the guy who's still in high school, but he's also not well. So he's got all these regrets, but he's also he's not doing well. And he knows that his time for trying to help everybody is going to be a little bit more limited than he would want it to be. And I think that's weighing on him as well. Am I right on that?
Yeah, exactly right. And it's kind of, the town is built on a cliff in California, and it's kind of crumbling into the sea, and every now and then a part of it disappears, and it's like it mirrors what's happening to Walk. He is still 15 in his mind, kind of, but he has this illness that forces him to grow up, and take stock, and as scary as it is, he has to look forward, and kind of plan a future that's incredibly uncertain.
Yeah, at the same time he's trying to take care of this girl. So she's a brilliant character. She's a tough girl. She's filled with sadness and at the same time lots of longing. I think of her still as Scout Finch with a Stetson when I read her. Like, she's okay, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. She's scared, but she's got this outward bravado of everything. I am in charge. I'm taking care of it. So am I right on, where she is? She's like she's a very complex kind of person.
She is. And I think a lot of it comes from having a mother that isn't capable necessarily. She struggles with alcohol and drugs, and so she isn't a mother figure. She isn't the person that Duchess needs her to be, and she has a younger brother, Duchess, named Robin, and so she's forced to be a carer. She doesn't get any childhood to speak of, really. She goes from being a 13-year-old girl and having problems with the other kids who pick on her to having to feed her brother, and look after him and brush his teeth before he goes to bed and things like that, and doing all the things that a mother should be doing. And it really weighs on her, and she's tasked at school with doing a project on her family tree, and she doesn't know who her father is. So she has this big blank in her life, which gives her a bit of an identity crisis. And then she finds a link to an outlaw in her on her mother's side, and it's a really tenuous, distant link, and she clings to it, and the other kids make fun of her, and she declares herself an outlaw, and they're kind of laughing, but it makes her feel stronger, basically. It gives her something.
You know, I love that her brother's name is Robin, because she guards him like a baby bird. And I always feel like she's going out to take things, bring them back to him. And he's like her project in a lot of ways. He's her safety. He's her safety.
Yes.
Because if he's safe, she's safe. That's the way I felt as I was reading it.
Yeah. And she thinks that if he's okay, then she's done something right. You know, she doesn't believe that she is worthy, really. At the beginning of the book, her mother says to her, selfless acts are what make you a good person. And so I knew her story would be her searching for that selfless act, because she doesn't believe she deserves anything good, which is quite hard. You know, at 13, you shouldn't be in that frame of mind. But in Robin, she kind of thinks if he's okay, if he turns out okay, then she's done something good with her life. You know, then she's worthy. Then she is a good person.
Yeah, and she can take over. You know, she can do anything then. So landscape is really a big character in this book, and the American West, which is a place I absolutely love. But I've been there, and I don't think you have been still. Even in the days of COVID, you've just been kept from California and Wyoming and the whole West. So tell us about how you researched this book and wrote so beautifully about a place you haven't been.
With difficulty. It's really difficult, isn't it? Because you can do so much. You know, I worked in a library. You can look at maps, you can read travel guides, you can read fiction that's set there, you can read non-fiction, you can watch TV, but it's still, to someone that lives there will be something missing. You know, there's a kind of heart to the place. Like if someone from outside of London was to write London, I would look at it really closely and think, this isn't my London, or this is, or, you know, and so it was more a feeling. You know, I didn't really, because I haven't done any writing courses or anything like that. And I don't really know what I'm doing, Carol. Would you believe it?
Really?
Yeah.
Nah,
so
it
was more a kind of gut feeling. You know, it was does this feel right? Does this feel authentic? And I hope that we got it right, because it's not just me, because I have the most amazing editor in Amy Einhorn in the US, and I have the whole team at Henry Hull, copy editors, proofreaders, and they are American, and they catch my endless Englishisms I put in there that would just, because it would ruin it. You know, if you're reading something and you read something that isn't quite right, it pulls you out of the story, and that would be the worst thing for me. So one of the first US events I did was with the Montana Press. So I was terrified for that one. I thought that if anyone is going to catch me out, if anyone's going to get me, it's going to be them. But they were either I didn't, or they were really polite about it.
No, it's like I saw the house, I saw the cliff, I saw everything that was going on. It was very, very well done. In fact, I was just thinking maybe I should get like Yellowstone and 1889, which are these shows on Paramount, and just send them to you and say, look how well you got it right. Because you really, you have the whole place, and it really just give us the right feeling.
Yeah, I could have done with those shows, actually.
Yeah,
that would have helped.
I'll just turn the TV on and put them in front of it, and you can just sit here and watch, okay? So, you know, the book defies genres. It's a crime novel. It's coming of age. How do you end up defining it? If somebody says to you, what is it? Do you have a way of defining it these days?
I'm still no closer, actually, because it's a difficult one. So I set out to write a year in the life of a 13-year-old girl and the cop, and the cop that kind of looks after her in this small town, and I didn't think about anything beyond that. I knew there would be a crime in it, but I always think that the crime is the least interesting thing in the book. You know, it's just a very small part of the book, and it's more us looking at why and how and what happens next. So I think part coming of age, part mystery. And when it was in the library, I put it everywhere.
So bad.
to
Cooking.
cover all the bases. Yeah. So it was literally everywhere. It was
Yes.
every genre. Yeah.
When you go into bookstores, you can do that as well. You can just restock, face out every
I
place.
do that, and then they ask me to leave.
The library, they found it charming. It's like, oh, gosh, maybe more people will check it out.
Exactly.
A number of people are saying they haven't finished the book, so I don't want to talk spoilers, but let's talk about the ending, because we can't really talk about it, but it's well done with so many different plot twists. And I'll say with it, there's a really great resolution of life. Did you know the ending at the beginning as you started writing the book, or did that come as you were writing?
No, I knew where we were headed. I didn't know how it would start, and I didn't know how we would get there, but I knew how it would end, and I didn't change it as well, because a lot of the time, when you're planning or when you're writing, things change, and you realize that isn't the ending that would fit. But this one, I said before about her searching for her selfless act, so I knew she would find it. She needed to find it by the end of the book, and I think she needed it for herself. She needed some validation, and I wanted her to have it, and yeah, but it's a difficult read, and it's a difficult ending, and I'm not ruining it, but I get lots of messages about it.
Yeah, and it's, my husband just came up and goes, okay, all right, really? And he's like, oh my gosh, like so much emotion. So he's a tough guy. So there you go. I've often heard you say that book openings matter to you so much that you start at the middle and you write the opener later. Is that what you did in this book? Did you start someplace else and then go back and say, I think I know where I'm going to begin?
Yeah, I do it all the time. I sit down and write whatever I feel like writing, and so it makes it a really difficult way to write a book, because you end up with tons of disjointed scenes that don't fit together, and then you're kind of rebuilding them, and then you need continuity, and you need to fill in the gaps, and then you end up with twice as many words as you need. But I just have to, I build the scene. I work across 3 screens and kind of build the scene that I'm writing. I like to see what the characters are seeing. If there's a tree growing, I like to know what kind of tree it is, even if it doesn't make it into the book. And so it's a slow process, but it's important to me to do it that way. And it's also important, if you sit down and you've got a really difficult scene coming up, and you don't feel it, on that day or on that week, then and I might want to write something like Duchess has a love interest in the book, Thomas Noble, and I loved writing those scenes. They were my favorite scenes to write. So I would go for those if I wasn't feeling it.
Yeah, if you're eager, let's go do those instead. So, okay, there's 3 screens. So you're writing on one, you're looking at something on the other. What's on the third one? Baseball?
Sometimes if there's music playing in the scene, then I will be playing the music that is playing. But normally it's just pictures. There will be so many pictures. There could be like a dozen for just a farmhouse or something. Because it's an interesting exercise. If I was to tell you to describe a house, you would probably do a really good job. But then if you had a ton of pictures of the house, you would be able to kind of zero in on details that you might otherwise miss.
Right. And they're ones that matter. Yeah. The ones that matter. The ones that give the sense of place. Like, this is the house. It's got to look like this. Oh, there's a window in the back. What's out that window? What are we seeing?
Exactly. But then I can get too caught up in the details, and then I miss deadlines by a long way.
It's like, okay, wait. We're really, this house is very well designed. I'm now building it for myself.
Exactly.
Let me go put some pick sticks and put it all together. Let me go get something. So the title of the book comes up again and again on the pages. And I know I was like the wicked fold down page person that you should never be, but I flagged it again and again. What were you doing with that title? We begin at the end, again and again as it's coming up. And was it always the title?
It wasn't the title. It was the title of the prologue at the beginning. I called that We Begin at the End, because we kind of, we start with this terrible traumatic incident, and then we pick up again and find out that all the characters are still living under this shadow. Even Duchess, who was born a long time after it happened, she's kind of born under this cloud. And so it really fit, but it also has different meanings in the book. Like, Duchess meets her grandfather later on, and it's his daughter that dies at the very beginning, so Duchess's aunt, and and he says at her funeral, the priest tells him that we begin at the end, you know, to make him feel better about his daughter dying, like she is going on to someplace better. And he has a hard time with it because he's not, you know, he wants to be religious, he wants to believe because he knows that it will make it easier, you know, it will take a little of the pain away to believe that she has gone somewhere better. But on the flip side, he knows how bad the world can be and how tough things are, and he has a hard time believing it. So it was just where it fit, you know. And then Duchess references him saying it later. She says it to Thomas Noble, a love interest, and then he says, so where are we now? And she you know, they don't know where they are, you know, they don't know what life is, and they're only 13.
13's a little young to know whether we're at the end, beginning, or wherever, you know?
Yeah, because I don't know. And I'm just turned 40. So
and you're just figuring it out now, maybe. Yeah. I'm not sure. So last time we talked, there was some film news happening with Disney. So where are we on that track? Because everything in Hollywood moves so slowly, not like a book.
It does. But they so Disney were looking for a network to partner with, and they have just I don't know if it's been announced. I think it has. So I don't know actually, but I'm just going to ruin it anyway. So they have partnered with FX.
Oh, great.
Which is really cool because they made Fargo and The Walking Dead, and shows that I love. So that was a major step forward, and they have a writer now, and they have someone that they like for Duchess, which is really cool.
Oh, yeah. That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, see, then it will tape out West and film out West, and then you'll get to go and see the West.
I will. Yeah.
It'll be your opener, you know?
Yeah, and they can pay for it as well. Disney have got loads of money, haven't they?
Yeah, they can just. And then here's the thing: you've got to get the chair with your name on the back.
I have to get that.
And you have to also go for. You want to be able to say that you have some kind of a credit in this. So you have to walk on so that people can later on go, oh, "That was him." So make sure you get that as well, because I think that that's like, you know, really what you have to do. You know.
Yeah, and star in it as well.
Oh, let's go really big. I forgot who I was talking to. I forgot This was the guy that lost 2 million the first day. Yeah, I forgot. Okay.
Go big or go home.
Starring, and we'll go, let's see, we'll go starring and we'll go right to the Oscars. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Yeah. No joking around. Why fool around? So readers, when they heard I was doing this event, begged me to ask what you're working on now and when we can hope to see it. And the last time that we spoke, which was a year ago, March, you told me to tell Amy that you weren't going to make the Christmas deadline.
I didn't make it.
You didn't make the Christmas deadline. But I was supposed to be imparting, like as part of the interview, that you weren't going to make it, so that she would feel like, I'm doing this interview, so I'm not going to make the deadline. Yeah. So where are you now?
See, that was back in March, and I knew that I would miss December's deadline. That's how badly it was going. So I have just delivered a first draft. Yeah, so it was like 4 months late. But it is a big kind of sweeping mystery love story that spans 28 years. So it's a big book, but it's been difficult to write, and it won't publish till I think spring 2024.
Oh, wow.
I know.
A long time for us to wait. Oh my gosh.
I know. I'm sure you'll get one early.
I'll get a little earlier than spring 2024, you know. Oh my gosh. So
but it's a first draft, so at the moment it looks nothing like a finished book, you know, like the first draft of We Begin at the End, you wouldn't recognize it if you read it.
Do you write over? Do you overwrite? Like, are you handing in for, like, you know, the 300 pages, you're writing 5 or whatever number of words? Are you way overwriting?
I cut back. So I think We Begin at the End was about 105,000, and the first draft that I've just written is 135. So we'll cut 20 or 30,000. So not massively, but it was 200 before I started cutting, and We Begin at the End was about 300. So there was about 3 books in there. Yeah.
Wow. So okay, so when you do that, you hand in like, you know, what's your kind of your draft, your messy draft, or it's pretty much put together, and then you wait for notes, which I've had an author friend tell me that waiting for notes is like waiting for notes from the test results from the doctor. It's like, am I going to live? Am I going to die? Like, what's going to happen to me? Like, da, da, da.
Yeah.
So it's like you're on pins and needles. So you get those notes back, and it's a lot of notes,
It
little
is,
notes.
but I'm the complete opposite. So it's like for the last 3 years writing this one, I've been alone, and all of a sudden I have it's like radioing for backup or something. You have all these, the most talented people that you could possibly work with all of a sudden holding your hand, which is really nice.
I'm ready, folks.
Mm-hmm.
So Meg has come back on. So if everybody's been dropping their questions in the Q&A the way she's been instructing, she's going to go to questions now.
Yes, we have some great ones. So I actually wanted to start with one that jumps kind of off of the question that you just asked, Carol. Marcia asked, because Duchess was such an important character that got you through your own life's difficult times, do you see her ever coming back in another book?
I'd never say never, but I would have to have a really compelling reason, because it was such a difficult book to write, and it took so long, and I only ever wanted to just look at a year in her life. I just wanted to pick her up in one place, we put her down somewhere else, hopefully she's slightly better off. You could argue that she's worse off, but so I don't know. Although we've had it's a conversation I've had with Disney, with the people there about what could happen, and I have ideas, but not at the moment.
Yeah, sometimes it is best to just let a character live in the moment that she's living in.
Yeah, because I don't think I could do anything but ruin it.
They have a little more faith in you than that.
I don't know. When you
season 2.
Yeah, but like certain TV series, where you wish they'd just stopped because it was perfect television.
Yeah.
And then it's too successful, so it goes on and on and on, and it can do nothing but ruin your memory of the first series.
That is so, it's good to hear. I feel like it's not often that people can recognize that there's a moment when it needs to stop.
Yeah, well, I imagine it becomes like does it say Game of Thrones?
Yeah, someone said Game of Thrones in the chat.
Yeah, I didn't watch Sex and the City. Like my wife watched it and was underwhelmed. But no.
Oh, the new episode?
Yeah, well, I watched one of the movies and it was awful.
Yeah.
Like it was the second one where they're in Dubai, maybe, or the Middle East, something like that. And I loved the first few series of that. It was brilliant.
Don't watch and what was it? And Just Like That, just skip it. If it comes
that's the one.
Just
that's
skip
the
it.
One. Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, I haven't watched it myself, but I've heard from several people to not watch it, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, we got this question in from Pam that I wanted to ask. Can you talk about how you managed to weave multiple character stories and time frames into such a cohesive, propelling, and moving novel? What were the difficulties and what strategies did you use when you were writing?
Just kind of like a lot of praying. There was a lot of prayer involved towards the end of it. There was no planning. So it's not a good way to write a book. But I've tried to, so I have an author friend that plans everything. He has this ridiculous spreadsheet and he'll know what every scene in the book before he starts writing. And I tried a little bit to do that, and it felt really restrictive. All of a sudden your characters can't go somewhere else and change the story. So it comes late, really, after I've written way more words than I need. Every character has a huge backstory, and then they get cut right back until in the finished book they're just bit parts, but I will know them inside out and I'll know what they do. The plotting is trial and error. What feels right, you might put something in and then change it. I did a lot of that, but because I knew the ending, it helped. I think if I didn't know, if I wasn't fixed on that end point, I still wouldn't have the finished book now. So that helps.
Yeah, one author that I talked to used this one phrase that I've been using ever since because I find it so descriptive. She said that some authors are planners and some are pantsers.
Yes,
so like
that's right.
some plot everything out and then some fly by the seat of their pants. And I found that to be very true with people that I've talked to who write. But
Yeah.
although, I mean, you did have the end, so maybe a little bit of both in your case.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I didn't with the new book really have the end. And that was like a year past its deadline. So it doesn't help. It doesn't help.
Yeah.
I think you need a tiny bit of an, especially if you're writing a mystery or something like that. You know, if there's going to be a crime in it, if there's going to be a twist, if there's going to be something unexpected, you going into it blind is tough.
Yeah, that is always something I wonder. I feel like if I was writing a mystery, I'd work myself into a situation and then not know how to get out of it.
Yeah,
I know. You're the
I
author, you really have to know.
You know, when you read a Harlan Coben book and you wonder how the hell he does it, you know, with that. Yeah, because I would like to know, because there's no way he's a pantser. He's plotting, surely.
Oh, there's no way. You wouldn't think so, at least.
It's too intricate, isn't it? It's too clever. And
yeah. Arlene asks, how did it feel when you first finished the manuscript of We Begin at the End prior to the edits?
It was a strange one, actually, because I didn't want them to publish it, strangely, because I know it's a weird one, because it, you know, on the surface it's a book about a 13-year-old girl in California and Montana, but to me it felt like really personal, and it felt like, you know, when I do a reading from the book, I will remember exactly where I was mentally when I wrote something, you know, and I might have been having the worst time when I wrote these scenes, so it was difficult. And then I had Amy help me and kind of turned it into the book that I wanted it to be, and I felt better about it, but still it was just such a long time, you know. It was like 20 years from the first time I wrote Duchess to holding the book in my hand, so it was always going to be nervy, I think.
It is interesting. I'm seeing comments in the chat from people who've read the book saying, you know, they're going to go back and reread it, and having heard your story now, it changes the way that they see it. So, I mean, how much more is that true of you being the writer of it?
In that it changes me. I thought I would find it hard to read it again. Like I had the audiobook and the guy did such a good job, and but I thought I can't listen to it.
Right.
I can listen to like 5 minutes of it, but I would start wanting to change things. You know, at the time when I deliver it, it's the absolute best that I can do. You know, I cannot, it's like with a new book, I just cannot deliver it until I can't do any more to it. But then give it 6 months, pick it up again, and I've torn pages out of my own books because I can't. I know, and like my wife caught me doing it once, but it was in my second book, and there was a page, and it was really badly structured, the paragraph, and I just ripped the page out because I couldn't bear it, and she looked at me like I was completely insane. So now I know not to do it in front of anyone else. I just rip them up in private.
Oh goodness. Well, that kind of feeds into this question that we have from Michelle, who says, ironic how it started with a kitchen knife ended up as a CWA Dagger Award. Did the success of We Begin at the End inform or change your writing process?
I don't know if I felt more pressure this time, because all of a sudden lots of people have read the book, and lots of people were waiting for the new one and are still waiting for it, and but I don't think it would check, because they've all been really difficult to write, and I've always missed deadlines, and I've been like, it's difficult to get me to deliver something because I don't think it's good enough or right. So I don't think so. I mean, it's just as hard now. I thought it would get easier. You know, I thought I'd learn techniques, and I thought I'd find a way to, you know, I thought you could just sit down and you can structure it and you can do this and then deliver, and it just doesn't seem to be working out like that. And I don't know if it's something you can be taught, you know, if you do a creative writing course, if there's a better way, or if it's just the way that I have to do it to end up with the book that I want.
It does seem like everyone has a different process, and some people have found their formula that really works well for them, but for some people it sounds like it's just different with every book, and it's difficult every time. And
I think you should walk into a creative writing class and just take, well, I've written this book and I'm just trying to figure out what to do, how to do the next one. just throw, like, I've just done this, but I'm wondering, how do you do it? You know?
Yeah. Well, I think everyone watching, and you can tell me in the chat, but I think everyone watching would agree with me that it's worth waiting for your writing. So,
Thanks.
here is a question specific to the book. Oh yeah, we've got a yes in the chat. Was there someone in your life that you modeled Duchess's grandfather after?
I get asked that a lot about most characters in most of the books, and my friends normally try and claim the good ones, you know, like that. I say that all the time. They don't. But no, not really. Like I didn't. Duchess was named Duchess because my grandfather was a Johnny Cash fan. So I grew up listening to A Boy Named Sue. So I named Duchess with that in mind. But I don't know if I do it subconsciously, you know, if I'm drawing on people I know, but not consciously. They just feel completely unique and of themselves, you know, the characters. I don't really know. I would say no. Sadly, because I would like to meet some of them, you know, not all of them.
Yeah, that might be a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
We have a question that's, what's your most favorite part of being a writer and what's your least favorite part? And is there still, this question is there still a story that you aspire to write? And I mean, you are working on more books, so presumably the answer to that is yes. But is there one big story? I mean, I guess maybe the question is there one big story that you have in the back of your mind that you're hoping to write one day?
So the one I'm writing now, the one that I've just delivered that will come out is one that I've kind of thought about for a long time, and I thought it would be too difficult to write, and I thought I'm just going to do it because I did it with We Begin at the End. You know, I just thought this is going to be a nightmare, but I'm going to do it. So this is the most ambitious, the new one, and kind of the biggest. It's a big sprawling plot, and it's been really tough. But no, I just want to keep, you know, I feel like I'm at the very beginning of my writing career. So I would like to just keep getting better and keep learning as I go. And for people, you know, I never have a bigger ambition than people just enjoy it, you know, because it is fiction and I'm trying to entertain people, and make them cry and things like that. So, but my favorite part of it is I like the bit when I'm beginning and when I'm shut away and it's just me for years with no one else and just the characters. I really enjoy that part of it, and I enjoy the editing. But it's also, you know, these are like the fun bits. These are the really fun bits. Like we've been in Barcelona and then Sweden and then Germany, and you know, I get to travel all over the place talking about the book. But the hard work is done, you know, without anyone else there. You know, when it's just me and the blank page, that's where you kind of earn it. The worst part of it, letting go, maybe delivering it. I find it really hard. Like to sign off for the final time is really like that. I think I drive everyone mad because I'll just continuously. It would never get published. You know, if I didn't have people taking it out of my hands, I would just keep changing things.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. You've been alone with it for so long.
Yeah.
Okay, Joanna asks, Duchess's toughness reminds me a lot of Turtle Alvison in Gabriel Tallant's My Absolute Darling. Have you read that novel, Chris? And if so, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I read it years ago when it first came out. That's a really tough read, that book. Have you read it, either of you?
I haven't read it myself.
Yeah, Carol, it's beautiful, isn't it? It's beautifully written. It's not something I've thought. I get Scout a lot for Duchess. Yeah, there's similarities. They're definitely tough. I think Turtle has it tougher. You know, she has a really rough time in that book, and yeah, I think there's a softness to Duchess that we see more, you know, with her brother, that we don't really get to see in Turtle. But it's yeah, it's nice it's a nice comparison, you know. It's he's a fabulous writer. So
yeah. Well, we're coming up on the end of our time, and this actually leads into a question that I really like finishing on for these, which is, what, if anything, are you reading right now that is inspiring you or that you're really loving?
So I haven't that long ago finished Crawdads. I was like the last person in the world to read it, which I really loved. You know, I really enjoyed it. I'm reading, there's a book by John Bircher that I'm about to start called After the Lights Go Out. He's an American writer who is brilliant. And I read All the Light We Cannot See, which I'm super late to. I just seem to have missed tons of books. So I'm trying to catch up whilst reading all the new ones as well.
It is
crazy. How about the two of you? The same question.
I actually have All the Light We Cannot See up on my shelf right behind me. So
it's funny because we think about books when they come out in publishing. They have like this 30-day window, the 60-day window. And then you see what readers are reading when they write in on Bookreporter, and it's something that's 5 years old or 6 years old. And you're like, why now? Like, I always want to say, not don't read it, but what led it to you now? Like, how did you get to that now? Always find that fascinating.
Yeah. I myself just read Howard's End by E.M. Forster for my book club. So that's, I mean, I'm way behind the times on that. Which was a fascinating book.
That's great.
Well, thank you both for taking the time to have this conversation. It feels like this hour just flew by. It was such a joy to listen to you two talk.
Anytime. That's all I can say is anytime. You finish the book and call me.
Thank you, Carol, for doing this. You know, it was really cool. It's just so easy to talk to you. It's like, you know, just catching up with friends. So
yeah, it's always so much fun. So glad I was asked to do this. Thank you so much, Meg. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was our pleasure. And I want to thank again, very quickly, all of the bookstores that partnered with us, and I'm dropping the landing page with all of their links in the chat. So go check out the bookstores. If you haven't read We Begin at the End, obviously that would be a great place to start. But if you have, go buy something from them, support them. We could not do these events without them. So we really just love their partnership, and we appreciate your support of them. And I hope everyone has a wonderful evening, and thank you to both again. And we will say good night, everyone.
Good night now.
Thank you.